Today we're going to start from a beginner's perspective and go through pretty much everything you would ever need to use in regex, including some real-world examples and then some fun labs at the end. I think we had around 15 people RSVP, so I'm going to wait a little bit longer for them to have a chance to join. And then in a couple minutes we'll begin. Okay, let's begin. So, what is regex? So what you're looking at right now probably looks like a load of gibberish. Regular expressions are patterns that are used to match strings. They're generally used to search or parse strings and validate input. So they're a very specific, useful utility. Regex can seem very intimidating or confusing at first glance. Often in the past when I've used regex, I've had to learn it pretty much every time I've ever used it. But there is, there are a couple issues with regex, namely that it's not centralized like some other programming concepts. Almost every different language has a different flavor of regex. And so even though you learn the concepts once, every language has different names, different syntax. So for today's, we're going to be focusing on JavaScript for all of the labs, but the cheat sheet is trying to cover as much as possible. So I do have notes for when different languages have different things in there. But today, we are going to learn regex. So this is what the timeline looks like for today. We're going to quickly just introduce regex. We're going to talk about syntax. We're going to go through some real world examples, and we're going to have a hands-on lab. Just to confirm that you guys can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so how does regex work? Besides making your code intelligible. My dogs are really having a field day in the background. Okay, so regex is very logic-based. Regex engines move from left to right, and patterns return the first case-sensitive match they find by default. So for example, if you're given the regular expression mon, it'll find the first instance of that in a test string. So for example, the Moby monkey stole my money. It's going to take the first instance of the letters mon. And so the way that that works is it starts at the first character, and then it checks that against the first character of your regular expression. If that matches, then it goes to the next character, and then it tries that again. If that matches again, it keeps going until it finishes. If it fails, it'll move on to the next character in the test string and try it again. And it'll keep doing that until it has tried everything and found that it's all invalid. So now we're going to talk about syntax and parsing, or how to read regex, and what the different characters do. So this is really the rundown of all of the different regex concepts. The first thing we do is talk about flags, because this is not actually the regex itself, or ways that we can change the regex. And so there's a couple there's many, but there's a couple here that are particularly important, namely the global, insensitive, and multi-line flags. And so they're pretty self-explanatory. They do what they say they do. However, most of my regex is usually either global or multi-line, because that's just very common in real world application usage. And what that means is you return more than one match. The next thing is probably the most important thing you'll try to be matching with regex, which is characters. So a character is either a word character, a digit character, a white space character, or a special character, which would be like parentheses, brackets, question marks, etc. There's really four main things here that you'll use: the word character, the digit character, the white space character, and then the any character, which is the dot. And then for each of these, there's a not version of that that returns the opposite of it. And so over here, we have some example strings, some example expressions. And this is all available on the repository. So we also have special characters, which you'll have to escape sequence in order to match. And that's just a backslash. We also have substitutes. So there are some things that you can't match directly, such as a tab, a carriage return, a new line, etc. And you use \n, \t. If you've ever written like code and HTML, you've probably used these before. Okay, the next one is even more useful that was possible, which is ranges. So let's say you have the string awesome possum 1 2 3, and you want to match parts of that. Well, there are many ways you can do this, but ranges are one of the better ones. So there's, just like with digits, with the previous characters, you can use word ranges, digit ranges, and not versions of those. And what these do is effectively semantically identical to the \d, does the exact same thing as the digit range 0 through 9. But what's powerful here is that you can make it any range, right? You can do 2 through 3, 6 through 5. Well, I guess that would be backwards, but you get where I'm going with this, is that you can use ranges to include very specific parts of a character set. And there's also ranges that aren't between X and Y, but rather just these are characters you can choose between. So for example, the first option on this list, POG, lets you choose either the letter P, O, or G. And they can be in any order. So you can, it doesn't matter the order you put there, like that would still match GOP if you have a plus sign after that. And you'll see why with the next thing, which is quantifiers. So we can take, and if any of this feels like I'm moving fast, that's okay, because again, all of this is on the repository just as a cheat sheet. You do not have to remember any of this. But quantifiers allow us to say how many of something we want. So adding a question mark to the end of a regex expression makes it optional. It can match the character, it can match not the character being there. If you have brackets with any value in between it, so for example, if I had the letter C and then 2 after it, I would match 2 of the instances of the letter C. And that letter C is a stand-in for any regex expression. So I can match entire sentences and have 2 of those. And then it continues where you can have X or more in between X and Y. Okay, these are really important, which are this concept of greedy and lazy quantifiers. So by default, regex quantifiers are greedy, which means they match as much as possible. But you can add a question mark to that to make it lazy, which essentially makes it match as few characters as possible. And you can kind of see that in the example matches here, where with the greedy quantifier, it's matching 3 Cs, and with the lazy one, it's only matching 1. Possessive quantifiers are not as commonly used, and in fact, they're not even really supported by either of the 2 primary languages that we're going to be talking about today, but they are there if you want to use them. Okay, groups. So this is where regex starts to look even more intelligible than before, but essentially, when you're using regex, you're usually trying to match more than one thing, or if it's possible that that is something you're trying to do. And so with groups, you're able to say, this is the part of the regex that I'm looking for. And that can be whether isolating the groups. The most common one that I would use is just the single parentheses. And it just says, okay, I want the word rural as a separate group. Separate those into 2 different regex things, and then you can select that group separately. The other one that I use a ton is this character here, the alternate group, which basically says, I want one or the other of these. And that allows you to say, I want one of the other two words, one of the other two expressions. And you can use this, again, these are simple examples, but these are all stand-ins for, I can throw any kind of regex expression there and swap between the two of them. Okay, let's move on to use cases for this, because regex is very powerful when used in certain situations. And also shout out to XKCD, it's a great comic strip. So here's a real world example for me personally. This is a grades app I worked on about a year ago for the school district of Palm Beach County. And we ran into an issue where we wanted to parse the names of classes, which who knows what format they're going to be in. They're case insensitive. They might have ACE, Advanced, AP, IB in front of the name. And so what this ugly piece of string does here, this regex, is it allows us to say, I want to identify these classes, these class names, and then format them properly. So for example, we wanted to title case all of the class names, but we didn't want to title case the advanced or AP part of that because that's not how you spell that generally. And so regex allowed us to do that. A more common use case is email, username, or phone number input validation. And these are going to be the ones that we're going to be using for our practice problems in a couple minutes, because these are things that you'll definitely have to do in the future if you haven't already at some point, which is match, like for example, I have an email form on this website. I want to double check that the email they submit is valid before it gets sent to my server, my database. And so you can run it through a regex expression and then feed that back to the user, tell them if that's valid. Other things that you can use regex for: date time validation, hex codes, IP addresses, it goes on and on. But yeah, that pretty much summarizes what is regex, how does it work, here are some of the basic concepts that you can use within regex, and then here are some real world examples for that. This is one of my favorite comics actually for regex, where someone concocts elaborate fantasy scenarios where it allows them to save the day. But I know I put this in the chat before. There is a link here to the ultimate regex resource. I highly recommend that you star this for future reference. If you're planning on doing regex in the future, I've done my best to kind of agglomerate as many resources and identifiers as possible for you. And then I also put together an app for this event, which you can download on the App Store or Google Play if you want to, but we'll get to that later, which is a way for you to practice your regex. It's called Redoku, and it is a Sudoku game using regex expressions, which you can see here. It's a fun way to practice it. But this is where we get to questions. Before this, we get to actually do the lab. I guess I'll take some questions first, though, if you have any. And if I don't have any, as it says here, I'm either a god or you guys just aren't paying attention.
Definitely a lot of questions, but I think a lab would definitely help out.
Okay. Well, is there anything super pressing that you think you really want to know or understand before we start the lab?
Not in particular, but I definitely want to get my hands dirty with it just to see how it is.
Okay, so can everyone go to the regex resource and then click on the lab file? So it's ultimate regex resource /lab. And in here we have the first 3 problems. There's 2 parts to this lab. First, we're going to practice it with some real world examples. And then we're going to do some fun regex games, which they have already on the internet. They're very great ways to learn and practice regex. I guess let me know when you guys all have that ready. We'll dive into the first one. Since this isn't a huge group, I think we can do these together, or at least the first one. Okay. Actually, let me go back. Here we go. Okay, so our first regular expression, actually, let me just double check something quickly. Move this here. Okay, so our first one actually only needs to match these, which is, can we write a regular expression that matches 3 different kinds of email template based on the resources that we have. So you guys all have this linked from the regex lab. You don't need to match the should fail ones, only the should succeed ones. And so the question is, what is the best, most efficient way, or really what is any way? Like if we're doing the first one together, I guess, like feel free to throw out some ideas of how we could approach this. And remember, we have the resource, or you guys should all also have the resource here, where you can look at all of these tables that I had in the presentation with all of the different syntax and options. But this one is pretty simple. We should really only need to use the first one to solve this one. Anyone have any ideas?
Maybe you should probably look at like where it says login at, since it's the same for all of them. Maybe we should include one of them in there, or for the regex expression.
That is certainly something you can do. Log in, if you guys have this open in front of you, the regex editor. You can, do this on your own computers as well. If you were to do login at, that would match all of them. And it would even match the DOM too, because all 3 of them have DOM there. But this is where we run into issues, right? Like, not all of them continue from there. So there are a couple ways you could approach this, right? Like, the easiest would just be to say, okay, then I'm willing to match like parts of that. But really the easiest is simply to add 2 characters. So the dot and then a plus after that matches any character. And so really the only thing you need to do this, because all of them are going to have at something and then .com, you can use a word character and then another word character. And then in the front, a 3rd word character. And then for the back, it should be as simple as a dot character. And then you'll match all 3. So this is a very short regex expression that will match anything. Even if I were to change this from login to gobbledygook, like that, it'll still match. Does that make sense?
So just to be sure, so the first one's just a word. So in this case, it's just login. Then we always have an at.
So
then
you're
we're gonna
always
have
going to
another
have an
word.
at. And then after that, you'll either have one domain.com or multiple, right? And so the easiest way to approach that is simply to say, okay, I'm going to match anything after the at and then the dot, because I don't know how many it's going to have there. I mean, that's not the ideal solution, which we'll get to in the next problem, but it is a solution that you can use. This is a very simple take on regex emails. Does that make sense?
All right.
I do want to do my best to explain this. No
And
more
if you didn't
questions?
have the plus symbol there, then what would happen? No plus symbol.
So a dot on its own only matches a single character. So what the plus symbol says is you can match, well, if I keep the dot there, matches many, just keep going. So for example, word plus matches as many words until you hit another non-word character. So another thing you could do is using what we used before, you could say, I want to match 3 characters, 3 word characters by using a quantifier. But we want to match as many as possible because of the fact that we don't know how long it's going to be. Although and we also don't even know if it's going to end in .com. So we can't really test for that either. And so this is where we get to the harder email question, which is suddenly we have, actually, let me reopen that. Okay, too late. Suddenly we have all these emails that we don't want to match. So like if we add back that email that we had before, which is something at something dot. So this matches several of the should fail email domains too, right? That's not ideal because many of these are not valid emails. For example, any email with a dot at the end or a dot at the beginning is not a valid email. But this one is a little bit harder to remember. I think this is the solution here. Yeah, so this is like, the actual solution is quite a long piece of regex here that I can try and walk you guys through. But it might be also easier to go on to one of the other simpler problems. What I tried to do with this problem group is make a very easy version and then pick a harder one. So this right here is essentially a start position. I don't even know if I talked about this in the presentation, but what it does is it asserts this is the beginning of a line, and this asserts this is the end of a line. And so this is saying each match should be 1 line long. And then you have alphanumeric characters at the beginning, and an at symbol in the middle, more alphanumeric characters, a dot, and then more alphanumeric characters, 2 or more, to finish, with no more dots afterwards. So it's being very explicit without directly saying it needs to have login or domain or .com. It's still able to match those. And it's able to get by many of these invalid domains as well for emails. I am showing my screen, right? You guys can see this?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, awesome. So another problem that we can go through together is a very simple one. We want to match this very secure password here, QWERTY70. What do you guys think? How should we do that? So the explicit is that we want to match any password 6 to 8 characters long, including letters or numbers, case insensitive, in any order. So we also want to be able to match 70 QWERTY and QWERT70. But we don't want to match QWERTY123. We don't want to match this 3 because that's too long. That's 9 characters. So what do you guys think?
I mean, for sure, we want to use a word range, right? So we can get the lowercase characters in the uppercase as well.
Yep.
How do you limit it just to 9 characters? Or what was 8 characters?
6 to 8. Yeah. So that is an example of where we might want to use, if we go back to this, a quantifier.
A quantifier, okay.
Because we can set between X and Y of the preceding expression. And then there's many ways you could approach it, right? Ranges are semantically identical to using characters and then a plus after them. So, there's multiple ways you could write this regex expression and have it work. But there's one key part that we have to remember, which is that we need it to be able to be in any order. And it doesn't have to have a 70 in it. It can be any number. So I'm going to direct you to one of the most powerful ones that I don't know that I spent enough time on, which is this right here, the alternate, which allows you to choose one or the other. So can you guys envision how we could use this regex syntax to write an expression that would be able to match these options? Any ideas? You were onto something with the ranges.
Yeah, would it be like basically like either a range, like a word range, or like an alphanumeric range, or not alphanumeric, just number range? Would it be those two?
You want to try it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So word range is like the brackets, right? So let's do like A to Z. Well, that would be only lowercase. So how do you just ignore case? So it's like uppercase or lowercase. Oh, just like that. Okay. And then like or, so it'd be like the pipe symbol, and then it would be 0 to 9, right? Okay.
So now what we have here is each is an individual match. How do we match it as one thing?
You use the quantifier, right? So it grabs 6 at a time, or 6 to 8, right?
Okay. Now we have the problem that it's not matching. It's picking the letters from 6 to 8.
Oh. Wait. So you just wrap it around and
yes.
you put.
So
okay.
What this is doing is it's saying, this is our regex expression,
That's like a
and
group.
we're going to choose between 6 to 8 of this, because this entire thing, this whole thing in parentheses, only matches one character. And then this 6 through 8 says we want 6 through 8 of those, and so this matches all of these, and it doesn't go over into the 1, 2, 3. So you got it. You did. I mean, that is very well done.
So we use okay. So just to sum up, we use the alternate, and then we isolate it, and then we put the quantifier on it, right? Okay.
You got it. Okay. One more before we do the game regex games. This one is also a fun one. Okay, so we have two types of phone numbers here. We want to match all of them. All the phone numbers are in the format 3-3-4-, except some of them, the first 3 are in parentheses, and the others, they have a dash to connect them. So everything we need to solve this, we've already used in previous problems. Any ideas?
So would it be basically, well, to tackle at least the first problem where we just have hyphens, would it be 3 groups of numbers, and then it would be and then we would isolate it. So would it just be, I gotta think for this one. So it's for sure 3 groups, right?
You have the regex. If you have this open on your computer, you can try it and tell us what it is. I encourage you guys to try writing this on your own, because it does really help. I think learning by doing is very beneficial to retaining some of this.
Okay, so I got it to, let me see, what can I just get rid of that? Oh wait, I messed this up. So, all right, so I got it to match the first what is it, the one without the parentheses. So that one I just did basically a group of 0 to 9, and then I did a pipe symbol, and then so how do you like? So I kind of just like I did kind of like a group of just a hyphen, and then I did like another group of 0 to 9, and I did the pipe symbol, and I did basically the same thing. Then I wrapped the whole thing to make a group, and then I put a quantifier of 10.
That is, there are many ways to do this. That's a good way to do it. As to how can you write one expression that also matches this? Well, I think the secret is, again, in the same way that we used in the last method to match multiple things, where it's one or the other. That alternate really comes in handy. And all of these terms, like alternate, it varies by the version of regex that you're using. That's just what I'm choosing to call it. But what we can do here is say I want either that or, and actually I don't even think we need those. Yes, I want one or the other there. And then in the front, we can say that we also want optionally one of those. And so now we're in the situation where we have that isn't the situation we're looking for, but I'm just going to put that in there. Okay. And so what this does here is the question mark is the optional quantifier. When you stick that in front of something, it makes it completely optional. So if I change this to be more like what you're doing, you can replace these Ds with a 0 through 9 range. That works exactly the same. Since that's closer to what you're doing.
Yeah, I just got it pretty much. It's not as nice looking as yours, I guess, but pretty much what I did is like I did one big group, and I did like so one group of question mark of the parentheses, the open close parentheses. Then I did a pipe 0 to 9 group. Then I did another pipe of a group of dash or the close parentheses.
Hey, you got it all. That's what matters, right? Like
Yeah.
regex kind of looks disgusting no matter what happens. So as long as it works, it works.
Yeah, it works with these ones, yeah.
What about the other guys? Did you guys also get it?
I messed up my keyboard, so I can't type. I'm trying to fix that right now.
Okay,
I'm just following along.
Good to know.
I was typing out a code and I clicked enter, but I was like, did a sticky key at the same time.
Oh no.
I disabled my keyboard. I have no clue what I pushed.
Sticky keys. That's like when you hold shift for too long, right?
Yeah, I was on the Jupyter notebook, so it's shift enter.
Okay. So that covers it for the first part of our lab. The second part is actually up to you guys. So there's two games that we have that are regex based. One is called the Regex Crossword, and we have beginner, intermediate, experienced, and then it gets pretty difficult after that. This is very similar to Redoku, which is an app that you can download to practice this, but it's a website. And then we have Regex Golf. So this is quite a challenge where you're trying to match, similar to with the emails, only the strings that are in the first column without matching any of the ones in the second column. So you guys can choose which one you prefer, and we can just do some regex games for the rest of the event. That's really the intent, is to have some fun while we're doing something that hopefully allows us to really improve our programming skills. Regex is very valuable because even though it's very specific, like I need to match something, I need to validate something, it is super powerful. And you can see like in like half, a single line, there are a lot of regex you could theoretically replace with dot includes, dot contains. But it just is so much easier to use a regex string expression and compare that and find the match that you're looking for. Hey, Ben, you made it. Okay, so why don't we do, you guys can choose the regex game that you would like to do for the lab. I'm going to do one of the intermediate regex challenges, and if you want, you can follow along. So here we have some of those alternates, and here we have a greedy modifier for this. So this was going to match 3 of these characters. This is going to match 1 of these 3. So if we know which one, then it'll be very easy for us to fill in the rest of this. This is a fairly easy regex puzzle, or it should be. And so we can look and say, okay, this is going to match either U and B, I and E, or A and W. And I think it's probably the A and W. I wonder if, okay, it doesn't let you validate it until we're all done. But we know this because the AW one matches up with this W and this A. And we know that there's an E here, so that'll match up. And then looks like there's a dot after this, which means it matches anything. So that well should be valid. On this end, it's likely a T. And then at the end here, it looks like that's probably an O. So let's validate that. It looks like that is correct. So do you guys understand what I did to solve that? If you were following along and not doing one of the other regex puzzles, because you are totally free to do that at this point.
So pretty much it's just like see what the 2 match with, so what's the possible match, and then by then you just figure out the whole puzzle in the end, right?
Yes, it's very rewarding. And that's actually why I put together the Redoku app, because that's effectively, it's the same thing, but just on your phone. So here is Regex Puzzle. These are a little more challenging, the ones that are in the Redoku app, but I think in a good way. If you can finish one of those puzzles, you will be pretty set as far as your understanding of regex. There is a final challenge, which I call the ultimate challenge, when you're really ready to put your regex skills to the test, called Gregable's Ultimate Regex Puzzle, which is part of MIT's 2013 Mystery Hunt. Looks like this. So if you think that the regex crosswords look a little tricky, even I have not attempted to solve this. It is certainly something that if you can solve this regex puzzle, I will gladly state that you are a pro regex user. But that's not really meant for this lab. It's simply a thing where when you feel like you're ready for this, you can come back to the repository and try that out. Okay. I'm going to, I guess the question I have for you is, would you rather do these together, or would you rather split up and do whichever game you prefer separately?
It'd be nice to just do it together just to see how it is, and maybe we can just figure it out by ourselves. But I think it's just good to see just how it is.
Okay. So why don't you guys start? I'm not going to do this one. You guys let me know which one you think goes in which position. And let me make it a little bigger. Okay.
Would that be like a W? W or yeah, would it be a W?
Yep. Or at least I think it is. We'll have to wait and see to validate it. I guess Rodoku does give you more of an instant validation as to whether or not you got the letter right or not.
Would that be L? Would that be an L?
And if that one's an L, then this one is.
P? Yeah, P. Would it be a P?
So if this one's an L, that means it has to be from this part here, which is an alternate. So there's only one option for the other letter because it has to be.
Oh, E then. Okay.
Yeah. And then this one has the same thing where you know what the other letter has to be because, well, actually there's two options here, but it's pretty simple to pick between the two. Because you know the first one's E, you know it has to be either ER or EP. So then you reference.
Yeah, it's gotta be an R.
It has to be an R.
Yeah. And we have here, so A, right? And then
Okay,
the
last one.
So we have, it just be A, right? Or K. Will be a K or an A? I'm like, yeah, be K. Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Now I think A would have been valid there, but I also think that these puzzles are designed where you're only supposed to have one of the letters, like you can't repeat one twice from the same row. Okay, we did it. Here's a 3x3. We're getting a little tricky.
Yikes. Oh, sorry, I was on mute. But so we have a dot like for like I guess one character and like a group of anything, and then a /1. What does the /1 mean again? So it's like escape, right?
Yes. I think that's an interesting regex to have there. I don't think you need to worry about that though, because so I think it's quite literally just escaping the one, yeah. But there is no one in any of the other characters, so.
Okay, so just but it would have meant like just don't include the number 1 pretty much.
Yeah, it's
Okay, so it's okay.
There's the other escaped character here is this hyphen.
Yeah, the hyphen. Okay. So would that top left one be? So the dot is just one character.
So the top left, the top one in the top left doesn't help you much because it matches all three of them. So you have to kind of look at the other two to be able to determine which one is the most likely to be the correct one.
Okay.
But that one, it looks like all three of these top groups have a dot in them, which means that they all theoretically could match all three of them. So it might actually be more useful for you to go to the next row and kind of build back up. It's not always easy to start from the top.
Okay.
The bottom middle one is probably the
easiest one to go first.
Yes.
Would that just be W? Yeah, I think that's the common character there. W.
Well, it has to match.
Or the bottom middle? The bottom middle.
Well, are we starting in the middle or the left middle?
Oh, you said the bottom middle one, like the one where it says towel and way.
Yes, that is most likely a W. Do you have any ideas?
No, I'm not very familiar with those of Java. And then I missed a lot when I was trying to fix my keyboard, unfortunately. I've been depending on Felipe.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I'm just trying it out here just to see.
You're doing great.
Yeah. So let's go with the bottom right one. Let's try that one. So we have RAM.
This is a much tougher one than the previous one. Yes.
Yikes. Okay. So.
No. Just like this grid in general.
Oh, okay. All right. So just to understand the first that regex. So it's a group of word range of RAM.
Yep.
But dot. So the dot. How does the dot connect the two word ranges?
What that means is you can RA or M in any order are matching, and then the dot matches literally anything, and then there's an OH. So either an O or an H at the end. So this is most likely one of the characters from the end of the regex expression. So it's probably either O or H.
Oh, so in this case it has to be O, right?
Yep.
Because it's the only character there.
Yep. So this one seems tricky, but I actually think it's easier than it looks because it needs to be 3 characters and there's only one of these 2 that matches that. So it pretty much has to be that one, if that makes sense, because otherwise you're going to have a blank space, which I suppose theoretically could be possible, but I don't know. I've never actually used this website to the point where I've seen a blank space be a valid answer. I don't think it is. So if that makes sense, then it is most likely TY and then a dash, if that helps you. And so this dot is this dot is matching that dash.
And the dash is at the very end. Okay. Okay. The dash. Wait, so the dash where it says escape dash, it's gonna match that dash?
Yes, because a dash, I believe so.
Okay. I thought it wouldn't match that because it escapes
like,
it.
So the escapes are complicated. Another way we can test this is by opening it up in what it really should do is give us validation whether or not we're correct or not. But if we throw this into the regex.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I get it. So basically that regex is getting matched against that one, right? Is that how it works? So the top
it's getting matched against all of these, right? So like these have to match the middle of these. This is to match the middle of this. And so it all kind of overlaps.
Okay.
So the question is, does that match TY dash? And the answer is yes, it does. Okay. So that dash literally does match the character hyphen, which is confirming what I believed. But what that means is this can actually also match anything. So let's just confirm that this is also matching. It would be Y1, I think. Or actually, wait, what are we doing? Something
so
T
in the middle.
T, and then it's a hyphen 1. Okay, so that does not, it matches the same text as most recently matched by the first capturing group, which is actually the second because it starts at 0. So this actually, I believe, is also a T. Like I said, regex is something where you don't have to memorize it because you have the ability to test things, to reference.
So just to understand the whole game, so pretty much you have that regex expression, which is going to match that whole entire column, right?
Yes.
It's the whole column.
Yes.
Right. So it has to be those 3 characters that have to, or what? Yeah, pretty much the 3 characters that have to match.
Yes.
Okay.
So like, so these 3 match this expression. This top one matches this expression. And so it goes that way over the entire grid.
Oh, yikes. Okay, so like the honeycomb one on the MIT one does look kind of scary then.
Yeah, no, that's, so if that makes it easier to understand what's happening in that honeycomb one. The honeycomb one is quite brutal.
They're not, wow, okay.
Because they're all matching each other in every direction.
Yeah, that'd be insane. I don't know how it's not like in a crossword puzzle you see a lot of hyphens, so Yeah, that'd be a little crazy. Okay, so now let's just figure out, I guess, the first row.
Yep, and it's
So-
gonna be either cat, four, or fat, one of the three.
Okay. And that the first column, it could just be any character, right?
So I think the problem is that we don't know really what the first two are because both of them could be any character.
yeah.
So for answers, we really have to look at the third column, which tells us that our options are R, A, or M.
R, A, or M. So the first character, so it has to be an A because there's cat and fat, I guess.
Well,
So
it has to be the third character would have to be an A. So it,
the third
none of
character. Okay.
in that situation, yeah. So none of these match for A. It needs to be M or R. Does that make sense? So you're matching one of these characters, one of these three, to the third letter of one of these three.
So okay, so see R, A, or M for the third. Okay, so R4. It has to be 4, right?
You want to try it?
Yeah,
Do you think this is correct?
I don't know. I'm just praying at this point. Okay, there we
You
go.
did it. This was a
yikes.
toughie. That
Yeah,
was
for sure. Okay.
I
Okay,
think
these are definitely good for practice.
they're amazing for practicing, but this is the end of 6
Yeah,
o'clock.
yeah,
was
I
around
saw
when
it,
we were
so
gonna
it's
wrap up. So here's what I'll leave you guys with. If you haven't already, feel free to start a repository because it is, hopefully I did my best to make it a great research cheat sheet for regex. It also has a link to the app, Redoku. Redoku is basically what we just did. It's that game, but in app form. So if you enjoyed that and you want to continue to be able to practice it when you're sitting on the toilet or something, that is totally an option. And thank you for joining me. Thank you for coming to this Developer Student Club event. We do have a server that you guys are welcome to join if you're not in it already. There was a channel for this event. Because you guys came to the event, you'll be able to get a role that says that you came to the event. And we're going to be doing a lot of awesome things in the next few months, so stay tuned. I'm Seth. Thank you for coming. And if you ever want to reach out to me about anything, whether it's regex related, I did a Git event in the past, so Git related as well. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm Golden Guy #8362 on Discord. That's probably the best way to reach me.
Yeah, can I write that down a little bit? Just I definitely want to reach out to the FAU, Google DSC, for future events possibly and all that. So
sure, I will put that in.
Awesome.
I'll put that in the chat.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, it was a great experience. I liked learning as well, just about regex. Very, very, very great.
Yeah, thank you. I think that we'll go back to our final slide here. If you guys have any questions, now is probably the best time. But it sounds like
Wait, where'd you put in the chat? What chat?
the Zoom chat. I can also put it in.
I didn't see in the Zoom chat. I just see the GitHub, and I don't see it right now.
Have you scrolled down?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I'm sending it to one specific person.
Okay. All right, thank you.
There we go. Oh, okay. Someone asked a question. I did not see that. Okay. Are the char characters supposed to be able to spell out only QWERTY or any word? Yes. So in that situation, we were supposed to be able to spell out any word. QWERTY was just a stand-in for kind of a crappy password, frankly. Not particularly secure, but it was an example that we were using for that situation. And so using a word range or a word character representation would probably be the best way to go about doing that. And yeah, thank you guys again for coming to this event, and have a great rest of your nights.